Hello and welcome to the Comedian's Paradise. This is where we speak to comedians and mavericks across the comedy world. Now, today's is a master in making fellow comedians cry. She has won many competitions and she is absolutely amazing. She's storming the UK comedy scene. And if I don't do well on this podcast, she'll probably make me cry as well. Please welcome Shalaka.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Uh, Thanks for coming on the podcast. For anyone that doesn't know about you, give us a little brief intro about who you were before comedy and what drew you to the comedy game and what keeps you in love with the comedy game.
Who I was before comedy. I did a PhD, then I worked in tech for a bit. And through that, I was doing science comedy, which is kind of like make science fun for people. And then over the pandemic, I met a few stand-up comedians, and I was like, oh, I actually want to try doing stand-up, which is when I started doing stand-up comedy in 2021.
And what is it that sort of keeps you at the comedy game? And what do you love about stand up as a whole?
Um, at this point, I don't even know. I'm just doing it. It's just what I do now. Um, I like writing a new joke and seeing it work. I think at the core of it, writing a new joke or a joke that you really love and seeing an audience member, even if it's just one person, really love it, that's the best feeling in the world. You're like, oh, cool, someone gets this.
Now, for anyone that doesn't know you, you are a master of two fields of comedy, stand up and roast battling and making comedians cry. Now, with them, I mean, they're both sort of stand up, but they're both slightly different. What is
Hmm.
your sort of process when you're trying to make another comedian cry? And what's your process for writing storm destroying gags?
It's a similar process. Also, can I just say, I'm never trying to make another comedian cry.
Okay, okay.
It's actually antithetical to roast battle for somebody to have a bad time. The best roast battles I've seen are roast battles where both people involved are having a really good time and really enjoying the jokes against each other. Um, I think it's the same like process for both, where you're basically doing your research and you're trying to come up with the tightest, shortest joke that conveys a point at any given moment.
But but there's no, for you, there's no real you treat it the same when you're doing both.
I treat it the same. Like I have the same technique. Like the process of doing it is the same. I think roast battles taught me a lot about writing comedy. Um, it's made my comedy writing a lot sharper, I think. Because I do this, it's kind of from doing roast battle, I've evolved a comedy process for writing normal comedy jokes as well, where
Oh,
I
okay.
essentially have an idea and then write every thought I can think of for that idea. Because I like come up with a premise. Like for example, I come up with a premise and then write down every thought I can think, every thought I have about that premise. Um, and then try and find a joke that way. And it's similar to when you're given a fact about someone for a roast battle. I'll think of everything associated to that I can think of, and then try to make a joke out of one of them or a few of them.
And what's your process for filtering out the trash and filtering out the golden nuggets?
It's mainly if does it make me laugh. If it makes me laugh, then it's good enough for me. I also, especially with roast battle, I do get feedback from other comedians because sometimes something is only ever funny to me, and I'll show it to other people who do roast battle, and they're like, "That doesn't make any sense. What are you saying?" Um, so yeah.
Okay. And but you've been on quite a bit of a comedy journey. Like I know that you've done well in the West End New Act of the Year, Leicester Square comedian, and did I hear right that since you've won the UK Championship twice, did you travel abroad to Los Angeles for the roast battle as well?
No, I traveled to. They flew me out to Denver,
Oh, okay.
which was really nice. It's the best comedy audience I've ever had in my whole life by a mile. They were so up for it. Like every joke was getting a huge laugh. Like they were a phenomenal comedy audience. That was in January 2024. Yeah.
What makes them so special? What special than like other audience? What was it about them specifically, apart from them laughing and being receptive, that you were like, my God, they are the They are
It's
the
the
source.
I've not gigged very. It's the only gig I've done in the U.S. But I've heard this from other comedians as well, where it was reflective of that thing where other comedians have said this as well. Where a lot of the shows that they've done in the U.S. it's novel to British comedians because it's an audience of people who want to have a good time. And a lot of the time when you go on stage in the UK, it's people sitting there with their arms crossed, being like, impress me. I'm not going to laugh until I know for a fact that you're funny. Whereas that Denver audience was just people who are very giving and open minded and willing to just have a
Okay.
good time, which is kind of rare in the UK.
Is that sorry? Is that more of a? Do you think that's more an American thing, or do you think it's just for that particular city?
I think it's a very American thing because I've heard of other. I was just having this chat with a few other comedians yesterday where other comedians have had this exact experience where obviously there are people have had horrible experience in the UK. People have had horrible audiences. People have bombed. I'm not in the US. Sorry, I'm not saying that doesn't exist, but broadly, there's a lot of comedians who were have had that one experience or a couple of experiences in the US where they're like, this is so different from the UK, where it's just people out to have a really good time.
Okay. Um. Yeah. What? Yeah. I think that's a common attitude in sort of America. They're a bit more positive. If you say, "Oh, I want to conquer the world. I'm going to do this and that," people will be supportive. But in Britain, if you show off or something, or if you're too, people like to try and say, "Shut up! Don't be too
Yeah,
cocky." Is
yeah,
that the
yeah.
same
People
in
like
India
Adam
as well?
Cockle. Sorry.
Is that in India as well? Is that the same sort of thing?
Um,
So,
it depends. India is like it depends on the culture you surround yourself with, I think. But broadly, I would say India is more positive than the UK for sure.
no.
Yeah, and I like to the point where I think there's also an element of kind of bragging where that's more common in India than it is in the US or the UK, I think, where you like you hear people brag about how much money they make, how much money their son makes, how well their son is doing, or their daughter is a doctor now. Like that kind of bragging is more commonplace in India than it is in I think both the US and the UK.
Is the humor in, so you mentioned in, from what your experience of being in Denver and being in the UK and being in India, have you performed in India as well?
No, I've never performed in India. I actively have chosen not to do that.
Oh. What is it that's prevented you from gigging in India?
I just don't want my family. I don't mind my parents. My parents is different. I don't want extended family in the audience.
Oh, okay. But you're not gonna do like a recon mission, like quietly go into, like, they don't know about you, but you just sneak into the J spot. It's a comedy club in India, and
Yeah.
do a spot there without them knowing.
No,
Off.
there is no possible way to keep a secret in India whatsoever. Like there's
Really?
the Auntie Whisper network runs deep, man. There's absolutely no way to ever have a like have a secret to yourself in India.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah, no, they'll find out. They somehow they just know. They find out shit. Like they're like spies.
okay. So, are you saying they're like from Taken? Like, you have information,
They will
Alpha.
find out. Yeah.
What's a story not from your side, but like from you've heard from friends or something in India where they found out something that you're like, how did they find out about them?
Um. Hmm. What's a story that people have found out? I mean, the classic one is like somebody in a different country will have a secret boyfriend, and my mom will tell me about it, and I'm like, "How did you know about that?" And she's like, "I just know things." And I was like, "What?" Because it's like a secret within all of the kids. Like we all know about it, but no, all of us know not to tell anyone. I don't know how you found out about it. That's the classic thing where someone has a secret boyfriend, and then everyone in India knows, despite the fact that no one's told him. It's like, how did you find out? That's crazy.
That- with what, I don't know what to say there, but is the humor slightly different in India compared to the UK and the US as well?
Yeah, I'd say the humor in India is very the humor in the UK is very dry, and the humor in India is very like It depends on the comedian, and I think the comedy scene is growing so much in India, it wouldn't be right for me to comment anymore because it's very different to when I last lived in India in 2012, and it's so much has changed like in huge amounts, and the comedy scene wasn't like there were comedians and I'd seen stand up in India in 2012, but it wasn't what it is now. So I'm not it wouldn't be accurate whatever comments I have to make. But at least when I was growing up, the humor in India was more like uh, telling funny stories. Um, what's the word for it? The humor on TV was very slapstick.
Oh, okay.
That was a big, and it's still like a big. There's a very famous Indian TV show where it's very slapstick, over the top humor. Um, but there's like a way of speaking that I can't quite articulate. Um, in India that just doesn't translate to an American or a British audience. And I don't know how to describe that, but there's like a cadence, there's a tonality to it that's incredibly different from, it's almost like sometimes cheekier in a way, but
Oh,
not like
okay.
rude. It's like a very cheeky, tongue in cheek kind of tone that I can't like quite explain.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Okay. Um, so what, like Craig Ferguson kind of no, not like him.
No, yeah, maybe Craig Ferguson would do really well in India. Um, I'd suggest just watching some Indian stand-up comedy, and you'll see there's like a cadence and a tone in the way they speak. A lot of Indian stand-up comedians, the kind of jokes they make. It's it's also like jokes that are like all countries have this, but jokes that are very specific to Indian culture that other people may not quite get. Um, like the culture of how we speak to each other, the culture of like it's. I'm not just talking about like politics or stuff that's in popular media, like literally down to like how like people interact with each other, how parents speak to their children. Like it's very specific to India or Asian countries.
Hmm, okay. Yeah. I've not seen much comedy in India, but I've chatted to a few comedians from India.
Mm,
So
yeah.
there's Naseef Akhtar's trying to do some spots in UK, and he comes
Mm,
between UK and India. And he told me
right.
that there's a comedian who got arrested. He's a Muslim comedian, and
Oh yeah.
he got super famous for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I'm hearing things like there's the guy that I know that runs a comedy club in India, and he's telling me, yeah, it's. I've spoken to a comedian from China as well, Tony Chu, and I hear with both of those markets, they're what from what they've said to me, it sounds like they were like the '80s in here or in America. Like it's a really
Yeah.
booming scene.
Yeah. 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 It's like it's big now in India. It's like yeah, exactly. It's like the 80s.
But what do you think of the positive of minuses of like doing comedy in the West where it's really competitive, really good, compared with perhaps starting in a emerging scene?
The positives are definitely you're forced to get better a lot quicker. You there's a lot of opportunity, even though it's super competitive. There's a lot of opportunity, especially in a place like London, to gig a lot. Like so, you have all the opportunity in the world to get better as well, because it's all been set up for people who want to do it. Um, the negatives are like it's super competitive, and uh, there are like because it's so competitive and there's like the industry can't like keep up with the number of people that they are. So there's a lot of reliance on um, people who are they already know or people that like you already know because it's a lot to sift through thousands of people to try to find someone new, if that makes sense. So like it's almost like there's that a little bit of that excitement's kind of not there that there used to be that there is in India where people like love finding out about new comedians. I think that kind of excitement's died down a little bit.
But yeah, so you think there's too many comedians? No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
No,
I'm
there.
joking. I'm
I
joking.
will say this with my whole heart. There are too many fucking comedians.
Oh, okay. No, it is interesting from what you said because this comedian I know from Bangalore, from
Mm,
what's his face? Not Bangalore, from Bangladesh, who
mm,
Yeah, he's like a king in Bangladesh, but he actively comes to here, America, to sharpen his material because
Yeah.
he knows that. But he's quite comfortably off making a good living over there. I know that there's
Mm.
comedians from Malaysia and Singapore who are doing quite well over there, but they go to the Edinburgh Fringe to sharpen their
Yeah.
material.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a fantastic scene in London. I mean, it is probably, as Victor said to me a while ago, it's probably as good as the only scenes that are probably better than it in New York or LA. I'm
Yeah.
not sure about Austin because I've heard things about Austin. It's an emerging scene. And there's lots of big opportunities, but it's nowhere near established as New York or LA. So I don't.
Yeah.
I'll probably think that as well as the standard's probably still not as good as those two cities.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know anything about. I mean, I know New York and LA based on people I know there or historical knowledge or whatever, but I don't know very much about Austin either. I know there's Comedy Mothership, and I know there's more roast battles there, and I know there's more gigs coming up and stuff like that. But yeah, beyond that, I don't really know very much about it.
Would you give Kill Tony a chance? If you were over in there?
Oh, not at all, no.
Oh, why not?
Um, I don't like the guy,
Oh, okay, fair enough.
and I also like, um, I don't care very much about that. I've done gong shows in the UK, you know, like I don't very. If I want to, like, I have nothing to prove, and I don't think it's gonna make me a star overnight. So what's the point?
But a lot of people do feel that, don't they? Like you
Yeah,
got people queuing up. I heard there's like a whole bar of like hundreds of comics
yeah.
just before they go on.
I mean, that happened. Kill Tony was here, wasn't he, in
Yeah,
London,
yeah, yeah. I heard about
on
that.
a couple of days ago, and the number of comedians who turned up and bought. It almost feels like a way to sell tickets.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Because I'm pretty sure you have to buy a ticket to be able to put your name in the bucket.
Oh, really?
I might be wrong about this, but that was the impression I got.
Oh God, that's the ultimate pay-to-play gig.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's a good grift.
I heard, yeah. There's a lot of that in New York and LA. But they in here it's quite a capitalist nation. But in America, there's no apologies about it. It's very
Yeah,
much like
yeah, yeah,
the London scene is quite dog eat dog, but like in there, it's completely. They're unashamedly. You perform, you charge a five and this and that, and they
yeah,
don't care. But in
yeah, yeah.
here, there seems to be a little more pushback to those sort of things. Like,
Um, Other cities I think are better than London for
oh
that.
yes, 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 I've heard
Um,
that too.
London, I've heard it's getting worse compared to when I started. But I mean, the
Yes.
classic thing is you need to have a bringer for a lot of gigs. And there's different levels. So there's some gigs where you need to have like, you just have to bring someone along so that they have more of an audience. Some gigs, you and the bringer have to buy a drink, which is kind of like pay to play. Um, and then there's other gigs, like the worst kind, where you have to bring someone. It's frowned upon if you both don't get at least a soft drink. And then when you're leaving, you have to donate to the comedy night,
Oh,
even if you're an act. Yeah, yeah. That's the worst. So, I mean, it's not as bad as US, but there are like places where it is kind of pay to play, but they pretend like it's not, which I think is almost kind of worse. Rather than just telling people it's pay to play, you turn up and then you're kind of forced into a corner where you feel like you need to, especially the new comedian, you're trying to do and everything, and you don't know anyone to tell you better. You're kind of forced into a corner to pay and made to pay almost in a very underhanded way.
but you prefer if someone's sort of outright with their
Yeah, I
capitalist
mean,
stance.
then I would just wouldn't do the gig. Like, that's literally it. Like, when I was a new comedian, there was one gig where you had to sign up and pay money that you could recover at the bar afterwards. And I never did that gig because I was like, why am I paying money? I'll just find something else to do. But at least they were upfront about it.
And I know each of those gigs, but shall we keep it quiet?
Yeah,
All right, let's keep
let's
it
not piss
quiet.
anyone off.
Yes. No, that is you do have a point in that. But what I've seen on the forums when people say being at gigs, I do see that comedians at least try and say something against it. There is a
Yeah.
little bit of pushback, but it doesn't seem enough to those sort of things.
Yeah, the problem is, this is why I say there's too many comedians. It doesn't matter how much of a pushback that there is. because there's always London's such a big city. There's always people willing to go along with it.
Yeah.
So even if all of like the comedians who started a certain year stop doing bringer gigs, there'll literally be 100 more comedians who are willing to do those gigs, standing right behind them.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. There's just too many people.
I had a interview with Eddie Brimson a couple of weeks ago, and he
Mm.
said this sort of statement sums up comedians to a certain degree. He said,
Yeah,
if you're ill or something, say, "Oh, I can't do this gig," and it's a well-paying gig. Your friend comic will ask, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. What gig is that again? What's their
yeah,
contact?"
yeah. Literally, I was talking to somebody about how their partner works in music in a very specialized field of music. And the general vibes is if somebody does a gig where they charge less than a certain amount, no one will speak to them ever again because they
Oh,
should all stand together and in unity only do work that makes sure that everyone who does similar sort of work is paid a fair amount. And I was like, that would never fucking happen in comedy. That would never happen in comedy. Like, as soon as 15 of you stand together and you're like, I'm not doing that gig, like, you can't even get people to stop doing gigs. Like, best example of this is 21 Soho, where 21 Soho owes friends of mine, like, people I know, £200, £3,000, a grand. Like, they owe people money. They haven't paid other fellow comedians. And there's still people who gig at 21 Soho, despite like the fact that the right thing to do is for all of us to boycott them until they pay everyone back. But then comedians will hear something like, oh, but they pay 70 quid on a weekend and it's £70. Like, get that money from somewhere else. Um, there's no unity amongst us, which kind of sucks.
yeah, but it's also short-term benefit. There's no
Hmm.
thinking of like if you put people off like that, then it will make the scene better for all, and maybe it'll
Yeah.
lead. There's no thinking about the long chain of things.
Yeah. I think it's because a lot of comedians see the problem is they see comedy as like best case scenario side hustle. I'm not saying people aren't allowed to use it as a side hustle, do it as a hobby, or whatever they want. Comedy is whatever you want it to be to you. That's not the problem. The problem is having that mentality where you're like, it doesn't matter that much. But in the process of it not mattering that much to you, some of the decisions you're making are screwing it up for people to whom this is a job. Because you're like, yeah, I'll just do 21. So I don't give a shit if these people don't like me. And it's like, it's not about these people not liking you. It's the fact that you're continuing to support an establishment that is actively fucking over people who do this as a job.
Yeah.
You can treat comedy however you want it. It could be a hobby. It could be a side hustle. It could be something that you do for 2 years and never do again. That's not the problem. The problem is to like not screw over people who do this as a job.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just suddenly like went off on a tangent.
No, but I mean, what you said there. I mean, everyone's been saying that about 21 Soho.
Hmm.
They've been doing a lot of dodgy things, and I think I saw an article on it. They're like
Yeah,
£10,000 in debt or something, and they
yeah,
owe thousands of £1,000s. Like, I heard
yeah,
about Chin Wang as well. What happened to her?
yeah. It's
Lovely girl.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's great, but she got massively screwed over by them.
And yeah, I heard another thing as well. Tom Little got done over by a promoter. He only did anything when he said, "Listen, if you don't do anything, I'm going to take you to small claims court." And I, then he got paid, and it happened
Okay.
with me as well. Like there was a pub quiz coming. I won't say the name of it, but
Mm,
they booked me for 3 gigs, and
mm,
they only paid me for 2 of them when I
right.
said that I was going to do the same thing. They didn't pay me for the other one, but I thought I looked at the fees of it. It would have cost me like £150 to go to the small claims court, so I thought I'd leave
Yeah.
it. But
Yeah, yeah. They know that, don't they? They know they can get away with that shit, and it really sucks.
I've heard in the north, and I was speaking to Carl Legacy, that he actively tries to avoid London because the pay is so poor and it's so
Yeah.
like he does top secret, but he does mostly up north or around it.
Yeah.
And I think in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
north, there's maybe a bit more of a community than there is down here. But
Yeah, for sure. I think it's yeah, whenever I tell out of town comedians how much certain gigs pay for weekends, they find it really funny. They're like, that's crazy. That's so low.
But it's funny. I know. I think it's just that towns outside of London are more appreciative of comedy because they don't get much going on. In London, there's
Yeah,
too
yeah.
much. They got too many things going on. The West End things. We got all sorts going on.
Yeah, I think it's way easier to sell tickets outside of London than it is to sell tickets in London.
That's why. I had a controversial statement from one of the guests. They said that people complain about people running gigs in the same venue, but we're competing against other art forms more so
Mm.
than each other.
My opinion on that, I've never run a gig, so um, I don't think I'm qualified to completely speak on it and understand it. I My personal opinion on that is it's just better if a venue has more gigs in it where it starts being associated with comedy, and in my head everyone stands to benefit if it starts being thought of as a comedy venue. Then organically there'll be, it's not like people are gonna go to a comedy night on a Tuesday and be like, oh, we're never gonna go to comedy night on a Thursday now because we've gone on a Tuesday. People don't think like that. Like the public doesn't think like that. It's only comedians who think like that. Um, my personal opinion is if the more gigs a venue has, the better it is for everyone who's running a gig there. But also, like I said, I don't run a gig, so I don't understand the politics of it. Um, yeah,
But the politics on that side is, I think, when you're running a gig, if you get someone running in it, a gig that isn't very well run, and
mm,
you're already established there, it will affect your reputation,
yeah,
and it
that's
also
a
has
fair
to be
point.
done in the right way, where
Yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
clear communication. But
Yeah.
um,
As always with this, I think the problem with a lot of these people who start running a gig where someone else is also running a gig is there's no communication. It's like most comedians are men, and it's a male problem where they don't think of just picking up the phone and having a conversation.
are we as are men terrible communicators? We are.
Yeah, for sure. Like I've had this with male comedians who've had a problem with someone, and I'm like, you know what, this could be so easily resolved in 30 seconds if you just send a text. But instead it becomes like a whole thing where they're like throwing around words like disrespect and stuff like that. And I was like, nah, just send a text and it'll be sorted in like a minute. You just need to speak to someone.
Some of it, though, if we do it a certain way, we'll perceive. If we open up and we do too vulnerable in it,
Mm,
there are some people, and I've dealt with certain situations where they'll think you're a bit soft, and they'll push it even further and take advantage of you.
yeah,
And that's the fear from a lot of male sides.
that's
So it
fair
has
enough.
to
Yeah.
be. But I think what we should do is just have a fight in a MMA club or something under sanctioned rules, or like a jujitsu. Well, I do a bit
Yeah,
of jujitsu, right? And it's a great
yeah,
martial art in that you calm and you feel great afterwards. And I think if people have an issue, especially as guys, just have a wrestle or do it
yeah.
under sanctioned
Fight it out.
rules.
Yeah, yeah. I'm fully in support of male comedians fighting it out.
I think it's better than having all of this other stuff go around. And once
Hmm.
it's done, it's under sanctioned conditions, so no one's going to get too. Just let them sort it out a bit, then it's sorted.
Yeah.
I've just
I'm
condoned
I'm fully
violence.
in support. I'll sign the petition.
What about female comics? What would that be like? I don't know what it's like in that side.
What do you mean? As in conflict?
Yeah, if they
I
have
don't
a fight.
actually. Oh, I don't actually. I stay out of most shit. I can't be bothered. It's not because I'm like a good person. It's just because I genuinely cannot be bothered. The second there's even a sign of conflict between two people, I'm like, I'm out of here. I can't be like, I don't want to get dragged into this. I have a whole life outside of comedy. I didn't get. It's not that deep for me.
Yeah, I wasn't saying. I was just saying that for girls, if they have a conflict, would they be able to sort it out like if men do, where they do that, or do you think it's a different matter?
I don't know. I think there's definitely some female comedians who would
Oh,
be
okay.
up for like a proper fight. Like Tasha,
Oh, okay.
she would be in the ring and all of us would die.
Oh,
Like she would get in and kill us all, like just with her fists alone. I think some female comedians would be great at that. I'm a pussy bitch. Like I would immediately, as soon as the punch is coming, I duck and then go home and cry. Like there's no way I could do that.
but that is probably the better thing to do. If two comics having a feud, gig for both of them and just do a spot. It's not really anything to do with either of us. Just
Yeah.
perform, do the spot, get better, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think the second you're thinking about like drama, your eyes aren't on the prize anymore.
So when you're in the green rooms, you put your headphones on.
No, never,
Oh,
never.
okay.
I'm too self-conscious to do that. Um, I just like if people are gossiping, I don't get me wrong, I love gossip. I love
Oh,
gossip
okay.
so much. But I will never offer up an opinion in either direction if I don't like my closest comedy friends, them I will talk to it like properly about stuff. But if I'm in a green room with people I've never met before or people I've just met a few times, I will not offer opinion in any direction.
Okay.
Mm.
And with you, so you going to the Fringe this year? You're going to go to
Mhm.
Edinburgh.
Yeah.
With you gigging up and down the country and in the UK, what would you say are your favourite places to perform and underrated that don't get enough kudos?
Bristol.
Bristol.
Bristol is yeah, Bristol's great. Like the audience are always super lovely. Um, hmm. I've performed in a lot of I can only remember the shitty places.
Oh, okay.
Leicester, I would say, is underrated. Great comedy scene, people who want to come out and have a good time. Leicester is also really lovely. Brighton, everyone knows it's great. So I mean, that's like people just know it's a good vibe. Um, but yeah, I would say Bristol and Leicester are two places that people don't think about very much when it comes to comedy, and they're both great comedy audiences.
And on the flip side of that, with don't say any names or don't say anything, but what are things that promoters shouldn't do for you as a female comic that's storming gigs that you've had stories on that promoters should be aware of?
What should promoters not do? Um, well, firstly, put me on a lineup with some guy who's a creep and a known
Oh,
creep. That would be it'd be nice to avoid that. They shouldn't. I think a promoter should never assume they know how to say my name. If you're unsure, just ask me. Um, shouldn't put me in, give me a trial spot or a middle spot with absolutely no um, intention of ever progressing me. That's just a waste of your time and my time. Um, what else? Yeah, it's weird thinking about it from a promoter's perspective. I always think about it from like other comedians or an MC or something. Um, oh, and also like not pay me when you said you were gonna pay me.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh God. Have you had that? I heard from Don that he's told me that some people have taken 2 months to pay him for gigs.
Yeah. I mean, there's one gig which I did for someone. Well, it wasn't even that much money, but I think I must have done the gig in like autumn sometime, October, November, something like that, and got paid in spring, like around March, April. Yeah. I've definitely had that. There's been gigs where I've had to like chase. I'll chase. I always give it a month because that's the legal minimum, or whatever. I always give it a month and then I like chase, like properly chase. Every week I'll send an email, and I've had some gigs where they took like 6 months to pay me.
Mm. But it is funny, isn't it? What comedy's not really regulated in that way. I mean, it's
Yeah.
got the LCA, but it's not. It's very loosely. It's very
Hmm.
loose, isn't it? It's a very loose
Hmm.
organization.
Yeah. There's no HR. There's nothing. It's just you're on your own.
But you're saying that you don't understand what's like on the promoter's perspective, but I think for any promoters that out there, it's very important for them to understand the perspective of the acts that are performing. I
Mm,
can't like for myself. I do run gigs and I do perform a bit, but
yeah.
I can't see everything from the other person's point of view.
Yeah.
In fact, I find it quite difficult to. But yeah, uh,
Oh, I also yeah, just thought of another thing. I hate when promoters, I'm the only woman on the lineup. Like there's six people on and I'm the only woman. Like I mean, they've done gigs where I'm the only woman on and I know all the men on the lineup quite well or they're super nice and that's lovely. But it's been very a lot of the time it's if you're the only woman on the lineup, even if they don't mean to, even if they're super nice, there have been times where you just kind of end up getting left out of interaction, conversation, um, whether or not they mean to do that. Even if the guy's like, I've been in a green room where I'm the only woman, and some guy will come in, and these two guys who've never met before immediately, and it'll be a guy that I've met a few times, and he'll speak to this other guy that he's never met before and leave me out of the conversation just because. And I don't think they mean to do that. It's just the vibes of the green room. But it's happened so many times where I always dread it if I'm on a lineup and I'm the only woman on.
Okay. It's still, I think, do you think that's always going to be the case with comedy? It will be mostly a male. There are more women than there used to
Mhm.
be, but do you think it's always going to be mostly men more so than women?
I think until um the there's no there's this mentality of doing the bare minimum that a lot of gigs have, where they'll have like one woman on, or sometimes best case scenario two women on. They're like, well, we have a woman on, so whatever. And that's the mentality. So until that mentality changes, there are just going to be more men doing it.
Do you think is because it's kind of status quo? That's why it's happened.
No, I think it's been good that there's been enough pushback to the point where like the status quo has changed. So I do believe it can change again. But right now the mentality is, oh, we just need to have a woman on. And until that mentality changes, until there's more pushback against that, until they stop thinking of it as like a do the bare minimum situation, nothing's gonna change.
Okay. And I know this is a common thing, but with audiences, is there still the attitude of funny things towards? Do you get any funny responses from people where they think it's like they'll shout out a horrible heckle, or they'll shout out something to you, and people don't deal with it on stage?
I think I've been heckled maybe thrice, maybe four.
Twice. That is
Yeah,
awesome. Only
yeah, I've
twice.
rarely been heckled. Yeah, it's very rare. And like maybe I've been heckled four times, and three out of those four times are the annoying kind of heckling where it's not anyone shouting anything bad, but it's people like agreeing or answering a rhetorical question, which is the most annoying time of kind of heckle. Like I did a gig where this woman was sat there, and every time I'd say something, she'd be like, "Oh my God, you're so right." I was like, "Shut the fuck up!" Like
Oh,
I don't need a choir. Like just shut up and listen. But she kept being like, "Oh, that's so right." She's like, "Oh yeah, preach." And I was like, "Stop, stop, like just stop doing that." But it's very rare. Yeah, it's I can't even think of when I've been heckled.
and that's where we first met, isn't it? So, yeah. Do you get any funny responses in the roast battle? I've been to a few, and it's quite a funny atmosphere. I remember there was one guy that would heckle and join in a lot, and they had to tell him to shut up a few times. But
Yeah. Um, Funny responses. I think my favorite is I once said a joke about someone, and there was an audience member who started laughing so hard, and then said, uh, repeated the punchline. I can't remember what the punchline was. Repeated the punchline and said, "I cannot. I think I'm dying," out loud.
ah,
Uh, that was really fun. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was judging a roast battle, and there were these guys in who were like visibly reacting to every joke, and it adds to the atmosphere quite a bit. Where some guy made a joke, and this guy just like gets up and goes, I'm done," and starts walking out, and then comes back and takes a seat. And with roast battle, that kind of like enthusiasm is really great. But they were a great audience. You see some also because it happens so late at night. A lot of the time, people are drunk, and when they're a fun type of drunk, it like changes the vibe so much.
it's quite a show. I mean, I've it's quite an experience for anyone that's not been to it. I mean, I've not been to one for a while, and it's still running in Angel, right? Or does it occasionally run a top secret?
Yeah, so the big tournament stuff happens at Top Secret, but at the moment, it's on in Angel. I think the last Friday of every month.
Okay.
Yeah,
And is Callum Ross still running it, or is it sort of a mix of people?
that's mainly him.
Okay.
Yeah.
What So when you first did roast battle, what are your thoughts going into it, and what are your thoughts like now of the folk format? Because I remember when it started, it was in some. They started it in some small little pub in Finsbury,
Mm.
and now it's
Yeah.
gone to what it is now.
Um, when I first did it, I was like, I'm just gonna do this once because my mentality to comedy has been try everything once. I was like, I'm just gonna do this once. It's gonna be horrible, but just like suck it up, do it. You never have to do it again. And then I did it the first time, and I was like, oh, I actually quite kind of enjoyed that. And then I did it a second time, even though I was super nervous. Like I think I was super nervous the first like 10 times I did it, because you care so much. And now I think my mentality is like I've stopped doing it as much, mainly because I'm working on my hour, and it like writing roast jokes takes up a lot of time. So I mostly just judge at the moment until Edinburgh at least. And then after that, I miss it. I miss it so much. I can't wait to get back into it.
What? So what, you said that roast battles really helped shape your writing as a comedian.
Mm.
What was the moment where like it made a big change to your writing, and you're like, aha? What was the point that the penny dropped in terms of how you wrote your
I don't
jokes?
think there was any single point. I just started like when I was it just like over time because when I there was a period where I was doing roast battle every this is when it was every Friday at Angel, and I was doing there's a period when I was doing it every Friday, like every Friday I would do it. And it like I noticed over time that the uh journey from me thinking of a premise to me thinking of a punchline got so much quicker. Like I'd be on the bus thinking of a premise, and by the time I reached my gig I would have thought of like how I'm gonna say that joke. And then just one day I just kind of noticed that I'd done that at a couple of new material nights where I just thought of something on the tube or the bus, and by the time I got there I'd like had the joke ready to go. And I was like, oh yeah, I hadn't noticed this was happening. So there wasn't like a singular moment. I just like over time I noticed that thought process was getting a lot quicker.
Has the process in terms of your comedy persona changed? Has it gone from being like Clark Kent to being Superman? What's
um
sorry?
I don't think my roast battle comedy persona and my on stage comedy persona, non roast battle comedy persona that similar. I think I'm a lot more deadpan when I do roast battle, um, unless I'm not having a or someone's annoying or something like that. But it's very rare that that happens. But broadly, I think I have different stage presences. Like I'm a lot more deadpan during roast battle.
Okay. And how much of what you do on stage is you, and how much of is that is an exaggeration of yourself?
Um, hmm, I don't know. It's definitely an exaggeration of myself, but it's a natural exaggeration. Like it's a kind of self I would be if I had more energy every day. Yeah, I think if I had the energy to keep it up, I'd probably be like that all the time.
So,
Um,
uh, your roast battle is you on Valium, and your stage persona is you on cocaine. No, I should have said that. Sorry, I
uh,
should have said that.
no, I think it's more like me on with my brain clear.
Oh,
Because when you're on stage, you only focus on that one thing. You're not thinking, unless, like, obviously, there have been moments when I'm either hungover or at an open mic night that I don't really care about being there that much or something like that. Um, your mind does wander. But broadly, most of the time, like 90%, 99% of the time, when you're on stage, you have like singular focus on what being in that moment. And your brain is kind of empty. But every other moment of my life, I'm thinking about 100 things at the same time.
okay. And so you've been getting it since 2021, but
Hmm.
what has been a moment you've had on stage where you've learned yourself from being on stage, or you've learned from watching someone else on stage, and that's helped your comedy?
I
And
mean,
this year or last year?
I've learned from watching tons of people on stage. Much better. I've had the privilege of watching some really great comedians, and I've learned from like them on stage how they handle forgetting stuff, how they handle. writing a joke. Like, I mean, joke writing is the most important thing I've learned from other comedians on stage. But also like simple things like sometimes you'll just see how someone holds a mic and you're like, oh, that's interesting. Or you'll see how someone deals with a heckler, or you'll see how someone like just walks onto a stage, takes a mic out of his hand. Like sometimes it's just the little things. Um, I think every single time I'm at a gig, there's something that I can learn from another comedian on there.
So, what's a recent example where you've seen someone and like, oh my God, this is amazing, this is brilliant, the this is the fish and chips of comedy.
I watched Ashling B do new material, holding her baby,
What?
and yeah, because her baby wasn't like settling down on the side, so she just brought the baby on stage. And the way in which, like, I was like, this is masterful, where she was weaving in and out of her new material and also like improving material about her baby all at the same time. And seeing someone like do that switch, like every time the baby would like move around, she'd do a quick joke about like what it's like holding her baby while doing comedy. And then go back to like the way she could weave effortlessly in and out of both was phenomenal to watch.
And do you think it's due to the many years she's been on stage, or do you think it's just natural affability and sharpness? Because I've seen her on, what's that program show? Stand Up Without a Net, Set List. She did very well in that.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think it's both, but I definitely think experience counts for a lot of it. But she's also generally a very likable, watchable person. Like I could just see her read the phone book. Like she's just a lovely person, and she's very likable, very watchable, very charismatic, and I think all of that helps. But it's definitely you can see that she has a lot of experience.
That I would have loved to have seen that. That would be a
Yeah,
viral clip if she ever uploads it.
it was very cool.
Yeah. But that's one of the things that I like about stand up. You occasionally see mad moments like that, or you will
Mm,
hear a comedian tell you a great story about a comic doing something
yeah,
amazing. Like Andy
yeah,
Zapp told me about Russell Hicks bombing for 10 minutes and then storming the rest of it.
yeah. I mean, also it's really funny seeing the opposite as well.
Oh,
Like being at a gig, I was at a gig and obviously one named the comedian, but they just fully blanked, like fully blanked, and couldn't remember. But it wasn't even like a new comedian. This is someone who had been great comedian, by the way, like phenomenal comedian, so funny, going for a few years now. And I don't know what happened that day, and they just blanked. And it's really funny as another comedian watching them deal with that on stage, where they're like trying to work their way out of that. That's just such a, or seeing like one of your friends bombing.
ah.
That's just super fucking funny. It's so funny. Also, bombing while your friends are in the audience, that's also really funny because they're watching you, especially if it's like a good friend, them watching you bomb. And because you just know, because you know them so well, you know what they're going to say when you get off stage. That's really funny.
And it's like a funny drunk story that you tell your friends.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You say, "Oh, I bombed in this gig. I did this bit," and I say, "Oh, that's nothing. I bombed in front of 5,000 people and I've
Yeah.
forgotten my
Oh,
name."
yeah. Everyone likes to one up the bombing stories.
What is the most horrifying you've seen on stage? I know that I think Callum was there as well, and Joe Grant, who no longer does comedy. Apparently,
Mm.
someone went and pissed into a bottle on stage.
Ooh, Jesus
Sorry.
Christ. Horrible. um, what's the most horrifying? I've seen this multiple times, especially at open mics, where you'll just see it's normally a man, and you'll see them on stage with so much confidence saying the worst shit imaginable. And then with just, I think the worst thing about that is watching them completely like oblivious to the silence. Like they think they're doing great and they come off stage and there's like the softest round of applause and they come off stage and you'll see them walk up to one comedian and be like, smashed it. That's the cringiest thing to watch.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
But oh, bloody hell. But so basically, what's it called? An impression of Doug Stanhope.
Yeah, except Doug Stanhope is actually good.
But if yeah, you need a lot of skill to do what they do. But if they build the tension up and they do it with a good joke, and like
Yeah,
Dave Fulton, it's amazing.
yeah, yeah.
But don't do it if you just started.
Yeah, I think that's the thing where it's every comedian has this where when you started you have like this arrogance and then you look back on yourself when you start a comedy and you're like, "Oh, what a dumb fuck." Like, what an idiot. Every comedian, like even now because I do a writing gym, you'll see new comedians and you'll see the kind of confidence and arrogance that they have. And it doesn't come from a bad place. You're just so excited to be doing comedy and you've got a few laughs and you feel really good about yourself. All of us go through it. And then you remember what you were like and it's, yeah, embarrassing.
Do you enjoy doing the? Is it the Angel writing gym that you do?
Yeah. I really love it.
What is it that you enjoy about imparting knowledge to the next generation of comics?
It's not, it's more writing focused, so you just give them stuff to write about. But what I enjoy the most, because every time I run it, so it's supposed to be like 80% writing. So you give them a writing exercise and then leave them to write for a bit, or you make them work in groups writing, or it's really exciting for me to see them making friends, but also um, there's like a level of uninhibition that you have when you first start doing stand up that kind of you lose a little bit of when you've been going for longer than a year or 2 years. And it's really exciting seeing that where they like they're just happy to go on stage with like stuff that they've written on the day and they're really excited to get feedback on it. And I think that sort of excitement, like I will spend a lot more time thinking about a joke now, or I care a little bit less about other people's feedback now than I used to.
Oh, okay. What? Why is that? Because you know yourself a bit more, and you're not bothered by other people's opinions as much.
No, as in like I still want feedback from other people. Like I'll still ask people for feedback, but it's not like that excitement where that they have sometimes where they're like, "Oh, I hope you think this is good. I try to anyway. Sorry, this is rubbish." Like that like nervous energy doesn't exist as much anymore, and it's really exciting seeing them have it. Where I'm like, "Oh, I kind of miss that nervous energy where you're like sometimes it like their hands are shaking and they're like, "Well, I just thought of this, but just like it might be shit. I'm so sorry. Like no worries if it's shit. Like the nerves aren't there anymore."
Okay. And if there's any bit of advice that you'd like to give to any comedian on writing a roast or writing a joke or being funny
Mm,
or surviving the comedy game, what would you say?
be funny. Be nice. Be nice, be on time, be funny. Those are that's advice from my one of my friends. And he tells it at every writing gym, and I think it's the most useful advice to give a new comedian, which is you just need to be three things. You need to be nice, you need to be on time, you need to be funny. And if you're finding it hard to be funny, just be nice and be on time. Those two things matter the most. Be nice to everyone in a venue. I think like there's tons of stuff I could say about writing comedy that's been said 1,000 times before, but what's not said enough is I've seen so many comedians make this mistake where they go into a venue and they're kind of dismissive to someone who works at the bar or someone who's doing the doors. And people will always remember a face. Like sometimes I do the doors at Angel Raw, and I will always remember the face of someone who's a bit like shitty with me. Same with like people who work behind the bar at Angel. I've seen people be shitty to someone who works behind the bar at Angel, and they actually just happen to be working behind the bar on the day, but they book the Saturday nights at Angel Comedy. And it's like, obviously, don't be a dick, always be a good person, regardless of whether or not it's at a comedy club. But a lot of people, like what I've started to realize because I interact with so many more people, is a lot of people are really shitty to customer service stuff. Um, and they need to learn to stop doing that shit.
Mm. Oh, bloody hell. And yeah, I hear that a lot, don't they? It's a common thing in entertainment. You would think that they're
Mm.
doing this, but then you find out, yeah, that they're doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. And for anyone that's listening in, how do they find out about you?
Follow me on Instagram at Shalaka Kurup. That's where I post most of my stuff.
Okay. Well, guys, I hope you've enjoyed the episode. I'll see you guys soon. The next episode will likely be with a comedian that's been performing for over 40 years in America. And I've got some other episodes, but I'll see you guys soon. If you like this episode, give it a view on Apple, Amazon, or Spotify. If you didn't, keep it to yourself. Don't tell anyone. Just be quiet about it. See you guys soon.